Exodus verse 29, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets, he was not aware that his face was radiant. And we also read from the Gospels about Mount Transfiguration, where Jesus Christ transfigured and his face shone like the blazing sun, according to the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus took 3 of his disciples, Peter, James, and John, to the Mount of Transfiguration, where his face changed like the blazing bright sun, and his garments like blazing white. There was a voice from heaven, "This is my Son, my chosen one, listen to him." So these are 2 mountains, one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament. There are several similarities in it, and at the same time there are several differences also. On Mount Sinai, God gave the law of the covenants to Moses to give to his people. First time when he went up there and he broke that tablet. We didn't see any radiant face at that time there, but he went back again as God told him to with the tablets that he made, Moses made, up to the mountain. So here is a chance that God is giving to his people as a second chance. Even though God was not very happy with they were worshipping idols and how their life was and rejecting the living God, God asked Moses to come up again a second time, and he gave a second chance through Moses. And that's when he came down with these tablets of the law, and his face was shining. And we read that he was not aware that his face was radiant. When Aaron and all the Israelites saw Moses this time, and his face was radiant, they were afraid to come near him. So we read that Moses had to put a veil in front of his face so that they can look at him through the veil. Many of us have seen, particularly Muslim women, wearing a veil on their face to cover their face. I don't know the whole theology or doctrine behind it, but I think it is to hide something or not to reveal certain things about particularly only women that I could see. And there was a big uproar in Canada last year about this, when a Muslim woman, a lawsuit filed against the Canadian government and the immigration ministry over a policy that required them to remove that veil when they take their oath of citizenship. That woman said that it violated her religious belief that her face and hair must remain covered, particularly in the presence of men. Prime Minister Stephen Harper at that time said it is offensive that someone would hide their identity at the very moment where they are committing to join our Canadian family. Veils are used to hide, to cover something. In the face of Sinai mountain, when Moses came down from there and his face was radiant and filled with glory, he wore a veil. But at the time on the Mount of Transfiguration, where he took Peter, James, and John with him to pray, where his face transfigured and was shining like the rising sun, Jesus did not have to wear a veil. So these are 2 instances of the Old Testament and New Testament. We are told by John and Peter later on, who were witnesses to this incident at the Mount of Transfiguration. In 2 Peter chapter 1:16, verse 16, Peter says that we were eyewitnesses of his message. He heard my beloved Son with whom I am well pleased. Peter testifies to that particular incident and says that we have seen the glory. And John, who was also a witness there on that mountain, writes in his Gospel, chapter 1, we read it, "For the law was given through Moses, and we have seen his glory as the only one begotten of the Father." And he continues to say, right, that for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ, and that is what I am testifying to you. So when he says that we have seen his glory as the glory of the only begotten Son, the word that he uses there about grace and truth that came through Jesus Christ, that we saw or we bore witness to. Chapter 1 of John's Gospel, we read that no man hath seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, hath declared him, and we have seen that glory. When he writes about seeing, or when Peter wrote about seeing or witnessing with his eyes, it does not just say about a physical appearance that they are seeing. As we all know that we use seeing as one to understand in many places. When we explain certain things to other people, we say, see what I mean? It doesn't mean that you're seeing with your eyes, but you are understanding the content of what I was telling you. That is what Peter and John both are talking about here. We have understood certain thing about Jesus that we never had before the Mount of Transfiguration. All the synoptic Gospels have recorded these things, like Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All of them records this incident of the Mount of Transfiguration. So the word that truth and grace came through Jesus Christ that John was talking about basically means the reality. The word that is used there is in Greek is called aletheia. Aletheia meaning reality, the state of being evident, to unreveal. John is testifying that we saw a revealed Jesus, not an unrevealed one. As we have seen the veil covering the radiant face of Moses, we did see the radiant face of Jesus without a veil, without any covering. We saw the glory of God, the chosen, the begotten Son on the Mount of Transfiguration. Moses had to wear a veil, while Jesus did not have to wear a veil. The veil is taken away. The coverage is taken away so that we can have direct access to God's presence and God's glory, no matter how or where we are in our life. We read that from Paul's letter to Corinthians in the New Testament portion today, from chapter 3. He said, for to this day the same veil remains when the Old Testament is read. The Jews still do that. It has not been removed because only Christ has taken away. Even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil covers their hearts. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Moses reflected the light of God, but Jesus revealed the light of God. Jesus said, I am the light. Follows me, I have the light of life. He is the light, the true light that came to this world, as John writes in the Gospel. So Moses came with veiled faces when grace of God in Jesus Christ came without a veil. Jesus has a shining face that shines through the world today through you and me. As people of God who has witnessed His glory, we have to be faces shining whenever we walk around in this world in our life. So please note that the fullness did not come with Moses, but fullness came with Jesus Christ. It was He who in history first revealed God Himself in this world. At the time Jesus was crucified, if we remember the crucifixion story, as He gave up His spirit to the Father, there were several things happened. There was lightning, an earthquake, and the veil in the temple has been torn into two. The veil in the temple has very significant meaning in the religious tradition of Jewish people. Only the high priest can go inside the veil at the Holy of Holies, and the priest has to confess to all the people's sin as well as to his own sin before he can go into the Holy of Holies inside the curtain or inside the veil. I've also read that when the high priest actually goes there, they go once a year. They usually tie a big chain on their leg so that it can be left outside the curtain just in case any of his sins that is not forgiven causes him to die inside the curtain. They can pull his body outside. So that place was a very scary place for people to go. So the law has given them so many things to do, but there was always a veil that protected them or had a separation from them and God. The law given through Moses did not remove the veil, meaning that God's wrath was still on us, on them. When Jesus died for us on the cross, that veil has been torn into two, so that you and I can have direct access to the Holy of Holies, to see the majesty and the glory of God directly through Jesus Christ. That is what the importance of the Mount of Transfiguration is. How glorious Jesus is, even with all that majesty and glory. He chose to come down to this valley, sinful world, so that He could spend His life with you and me. As a human being, suffering, He came down to die for us. That is the great story, Transfiguration. So when Paul is writing into Corinthians, he said, we who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory are being transformed into His likeness with ever-increasing glory, from glory to glory, the glory of the Son. We read that in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 18. He is using a Jewish hermeneutic. Hermeneutic is like an interpretation of the Jewish doctrine to make a point. But he is saying that when they turn to the Lord, the veil is removed and they are transformed into that glory which is growing from glory to glory. The Apostle John, as a witness to this transfiguration, like I said the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Even though he continues to say that no one has ever seen God, but the only Son who himself is in closest relationship with the Father has made him known. And we have seen his glory as the glory of the only begotten Son. The Hebrew writer writes in chapter 10, the law is only a shadow of the good things to come, not realities themselves. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain that is his body. And since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance of faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. And it continues to read in Hebrews chapter 12. If you have one of the New International Versions, the passage in Hebrews chapter 12 reads with a title. It says, the mountain of fear and the mountain of joy. And the Hebrew writer writes, you have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom and storm, to a trumpet blast, to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to him, because they could not bear what was commanded. The mountain, it must be stoned to death. That was the Old Testament. Now he continues to write that, but you have come to Mount of Zion, the city of living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names were written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all, to the spirits of the righteous and perfect. Jesus, who is the mediator of the new covenant, and to be sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to that you do not refuse him who speaks. At that time, when he was on the mountain, a voice shook the earth, and it was promised that this is my beloved Son, listen to him. Once more I will shake not only the earth but also the heavens. The words once more indicate the removing of what can be shaken, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. I'm reading from Hebrews chapter 10. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe. For our God is a consuming fire. With Jesus, we all are transformed from glory to glory. We are all receiving a shining face that shone, the same light that shone in the face of Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. God wants us to be people who are shining his light in this world. For this one who has been counted worthy of more glory than Moses, inasmuch as he who builds the house has more honor in the house. That is what Hebrews writers say about Jesus' glory, which is glory greater than Moses. The man Christ Jesus, who gave himself a ransom for all to be testified in due time. He came to this world to save the sinners, to remove the veil that separated between me and God. He is the image of the invisible God. As Solomon writes in Song of Solomon, and he is the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. He is the root of the offspring of David, the bright and morning star, who brights and shines even today through you and me in this world. There is a beautiful hymn, Fairest Lord Jesus. The author is unknown. It says, fair is the sunshine, fairer still the moonlight, and all the twinkling starry host. But Jesus shines brighter. Jesus shines purer than all the angels heaven can bear. If you are here today feeling like something is blocking between you and God, remember there is a Jesus who took the veil off, who took the sin and the burden for you and me so that we can have direct access to God's presence and God's glory. Come to him today. You can't remove the veil yourself. Only God has made the plan to remove that veil because of his Son Jesus Christ who died on the cross. So let us come near to the throne of grace today with boldness, knowing that we have a high priest who is interceding for us at the Father's throne. Whatever is separating you and God will be removed by the presence of Jesus in your life.